Hey everyone. In a previous video, I showed a couple of ways on how you can create a bot using the Microsoft Bot Framework. But in this video, I'm going to show how you can actually create a bot. And the bot I want to help you create is a book search bot. This is going to be what we're going to make here. So when we join, it gives us a couple of messages and it asks us what book we would like to search. So if I search for something like deep learning with Python, it's going to give me back the top 3 results here. The first one's going to be the Manning's Deep Learning with Python and a couple other books here. Now the images aren't very good here because the resolution doesn't come back very nice and we can't really resize the images here, but otherwise I think it's pretty cool that we can do that. Do a little carousel here. And then it asks us again if we would like to search another book. Alright, so in order to build this bot, I'm going to do it in Visual Studio first. Now we could make it in Azure first, but I'll just do it in Visual Studio. And I'll use the template here. I'm going to create the Echo Bot template. I call it Book Bot. Alright, so we have our Echo Bot here, but I'm going to rename this to Search Bot. And I'll let it change references, and I'm going to build it to make sure that it did that successfully, and it did. Alright, so let's look at what we have going on in this bot. So the onMessage activity async, this is what runs every time you send a message to the bot. So when you send it to it, it'll echo back what you said. The onMembers added async, this is what happens when a new member either joins, like in a Slack channel, if a member joins, you'll get this message. Or with the bot, when you start the bot, you'll get this message. And this create activity with text and speak. This just takes what you sent and creates this speak tag and then adds it to the activity. We won't be using this, but we'll just leave it there anyway. So if you saw from the example there, I changed the onMembers added async to do something different here. So the first thing I said was I just changed this to hello, welcome to the book search bot. I also had it ask you what book you would want to search. So with that, I'll create a method called welcome bot ask search. And I'll pass in the turn context and a cancellation token. We have to create this method. So we do private static and it's async since we have the await on it. Bot ask search. There's turn context. Then the cancellation token. Is our parameters there? We could have asked Visual Studio to create this for us, but I just did it on its own. So the only thing here is I want to create a message to send. To do that, I'll use the message factory.text. That creates an activity for us that we can pass in to the bot. Say, what book would you like to search? And then with that, all we have to do is use await, turn context. And I forgot, this returns a task. Okay, turn context. Send activity async. That's why we use the message factory to create an activity. So just send that, and then the cancellation token, we just pass that through. There we go. And let's go ahead and run this. And it's going to open up a new Chrome window here. And it gives you this API that you can use for the emulator, unless you like me and you have different port. So I just take the address up here and I'll launch the bot framework emulator. Now put it up here, and it needs to end with /API/messages. And we don't need a app ID, a password for this, since this is all local. And it gives us our greeting here, and it looks like I made a typo here, which we'll need to correct. But if we type anything in here, it's just going to do that echo because we didn't change anything with that yet. All right, so I'll exit that, go back here, change our typo. So that's our kind of our welcome message there. Next, let's change what we do when we receive a message, or in our case, a book to search. So the first thing is I want to get the input, and that's going to be from the term context, that activity, so the current activity and the text that we get from our current activity. All right, so now that we have our current text, let's go ahead and look at the API that we're going to use to get our books. All right, so this is GoodReads, which is a nice site for books and kind of keeping up with the books that you read and socializing with other people that read similar books to you. And they have an API here, and specifically I'm going to use one endpoint, and that is going to be the search books endpoint here. And this is going to give us an XML response, which is kind of interesting. Most APIs give JSON responses, but I will show you how you can serialize this XML response within the bot there. And it gives us the most popular books for the given query, and we can give it a title or an author. We can do ISBN too, but nobody knows ISBNs off the top of their head, so we're not going to worry with that here. But it is supported if somebody happens to input one. With the GoodReads API, though, you will need a developer key, so you have to sign up for it if you want to play around with the API and use that developer key. All right, so back here in Visual Studio, to start implementing our API, I'll add a new folder called API, and I'll add another class, and I'm going to call it GoodReads API wrapper, because I'm just wrapping the API. And to make a HTTP call in .NET here, we need to use the HTTP client class, and so I will use a class level field here, HTTP client, and I'll call it client, and I'll create a constructor where I set client equals to a new HTTP client instance. All right, now I'm going to make a public async method. It's going to return a task. It's going to return a GoodReads response, and I'll create that in a bit later, and I'll call it get search response. It's going to take in the string of the input to search. All right, so within this method, I'm going to create a variable that holds the base URL here. This is just the main URL of the API. And then I'm going to create a key variable. In the API, the key is just a query parameter. So I add a question mark, key, and I'm just going to add the key in here, like so. And this key will be generated by the time this video goes out, so don't worry about me giving away my key here. Since we have our URL information here, we can now get ready to get a response. We can do that by awaiting client.getAsync. We're going to pass in the base URL and then the key right after it. Then after that, there's another query parameter of Q for our query, and I'll set it to the input. So this is going to make the HTTP request to the API and give us a response. To get the content of the response, I will await response.content.read as string, not stream, string async. So this just gives the XML response as a string. And now we need to serialize that XML response into a .NET class. And first, let's create this GoodReads response. And to do that, I'm going to create another folder called models. And first, let's go back to the API and take a look at what that response looks like. There we go. So look at it as sample response. It is an XML, as you can see, but we have GoodReads response as the root level item. You have a search, then we have results, and then we have multiple work items here. This gives us our kind of our book details, including a title, which is within a best book element, the number of books, our author details, and images that we can use. So we need to build out our classes to kind of mimic this response. All right, so let's create that root level item here. So it's going to be a class. I'm going to do GoodReads response. And because we are serializing XML, we need some attributes here. The first one, XML root, because this is the root of the XML to serialize. So I need to tell it that the root is GoodReads response. And then within that response, I have another XML element called search. Now make a property. It's going to be a search response object, which I'm going to call search. So now we need to make this class, and we're going to be creating a few of these to traverse down that response that we saw. So the search response that has an XML element. I'm going to get the total results. It's going to be an integer called total results. And I'm going to get another search results object called results. And that is XML element results. I'll create that. And kind of save time, I will just go ahead and create the rest of these model files, and I'll go over those real quick. All right, so we have the rest of the items added here. The search results where we ended off at, that was that work XML element, and there were multiple of those within the results. So we'll have a list of those work items, and each of those work items has a book element, and each of those books has a title and an image. I'm getting a small image from the response. And then it has an author, and with there I just get the name. So we're pretty much just matching that hierarchy of the XML response as .NET classes here. All right, since we have our models going, we can import it in here. And back in our method, we can serialize the XML by calling new XML serializer. It's going to be a type of GoodReads response. That's what's going to have that XML root for the read off of. And to use the serializer, we need to do a using, because it takes in a string. We'll do new string reader. Pass in the string content. Then within this using block, I'll just return the serializer that deserialize on the stream. But since we are returning a GoodReads response, I need to explicitly cast this deserializer to GoodReads response. All right, so that should make our call there. And back to our bot. Now we need to create a new instance of this API wrapper. What we could do is just explicitly just make a private read-only GoodReads API wrapper, call it wrapper equals new GoodReads API wrapper. And then in our message activity, we can get the response, await wrapper that gets search response and pass in the input. And we'll do a check if the input response doesn't equal null. I'll create a message here. And I'll say the input found input response that search that total results. I'll say the top 3 results are, now when we saw it earlier, it was in that carousel, and to do that it actually consists of 3 different what they call hero cards, which is cards that we can put images into. And then we told it the layout type was carousel. First do that, let's take our top 3 items. So the input response search dot results for the work items. I will use the link method take top 3. Now I want to create hero cards. So I do items.select, and for each item, let me rename this to item. And so for each item, I'd create a new hero card, and in here, for each hero card, I give it an image, and images is a list, but I'll only give it one item here, which is a new card image with the URL equal to the item that book item image URL, and then the title is the item that book item that title, and then the subtitle we'll set as the book item author name. So that's each of those cards that we had in that carousel response that we had. Each card is going to be each book that it came back in the response. Now if we just output these cards out to the bot, it'll create 3 different outputs as a single card, but we want these outputs into one card with all 3 items. So to do that, we need to add them as an attachment, which we can create using the message factoring, that attachment, and we just do a new empty list of attachments. And we do that attachment layout to set the layout type as a carousel. And so for each item in the hero cards, I'll add an attachment, and I do item.to attachment, so that hero card is going to get converted to an attachment. And with that, we can call await, turn context, turn context as send activity. We can first send this message, and then pass in the cancellation token. Then we can send another message, as an activity and send that attachment, which consists of the hero cards and the cancellation token. And then regardless if we get a response or not, we can await that welcome message once again. So it kind of loops through until the user is done. Now up here we have an error here because we need to specify that we're passing in the cancellation token as the parameter and not something else. Alright, so let's run this and see how well we did on our bot. Alright, so I'll take this. Well, since we still have our emulator open, we can just click here to reconnect to our bot. Now let's do Inferno as our search query. Oh, there we go. Then we got our images. It's all in a carousel. We can go back and forth between them. It's all in one response, one bot response message here. Got the title as the title of the card, and the subtitle is the author's name. All right, so I'll end things there. I hope this gave you a kind of a decent idea of how to work with the new version 4 of the bot framework, how you can make an API call and use the hero cards to send attachments and all that. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching.